What's going on, everybody? It's Matt and Dion. We're live today. It's Friday, March 7th of 2025, and we're going to talk crisis because we're in a great crisis. It's a huge crisis, and Dion's typing frantically. Not really sure what he's typing frantically, but you should be there. You should be good. You good? Yeah.
It let me go live on my channel, but I had to give it a title.
Oh, here we are. I see.
The 2025 housing crisis with Lumberjack landlord and Dion Talk Live.
I tell you, I mean, if you're not here, where are you and what are you doing? And how could you possibly care about your financial future if you're not here right now? But anyway, I digress. So, Dion, I know that you are finishing up your flip. It's all finished and you're living there and have a tenant and all that stuff. But now you're talking about kind of what are you looking at right now that's kind of setting up, I hate the word mindset, but setting up your mindset or setting up kind of your trajectory for what you might do in 2025. Because I know you're about to go on vacation for months.
Yeah, just 2 months, and then I'll come back for like a week or two, and then I'll go. If I go to Scotland, it'll be another month or two. If I go to Yellowstone, it'll be like by 2 weeks. I know you hate the mindset stuff because we have different roles in what we're doing.
We do.
Right? My role, and this is the analogy that we use, and we used this on Zuber's channel the other day, is the sports ball stadium. Right. Probably football because we're in America, but I'm in the parking lot with everybody having a tailgate party, not realizing they're going to work until they die. And I have to convince them there's another path. If I can get them into the stadium to where Zuber has all of his millionaires saying, here's all the different ways to reach financial freedom. Mine is one of them, right? The lazy landlord, small portfolio, the right amount of cash flow to get them on the field where you are. You're on like the gridiron. You're saying, here's the strategies to optimize, to improve, to self-manage, to run your own flips and burrs and all that stuff. So mindset doesn't impact the people who found you. They've already decided, I'm doing this. Matt's the operator. I want to mirror as much as I can of Matt to make their life better. I'm just finding people that they don't even understand the concept that you don't have to work your whole life. And so I make about half my videos on mindset, half on here's how I did it. And the mindset ones irritate you because you don't need to make those. I get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you for sure. And I'm grateful that you do because you're a great teacher at it. But yeah, mindset stuff just drives me up an absolute wall. Just because, again, at the end of the day, for me, it's not an emotional thing. It's not a get your mind right. It's a, it's very binary. Do I want to work until I'm 65? Yes or no? No. In order to not work until I'm 65, I need to do something else. Yes or no? Yes. In order to, and what is that thing that I'm going to want to do? Fill in blank. Like for me, it's like a very easy, like it's a step above a Rorschach test or Warshak test, whatever they call it.
So that's the challenge is let's say you're in a room with somebody, you just meet them. They're the average working person. You're not in the convincing business.
Yeah, I am not.
If the conversation came up and you realize that they don't want to invest, you'd be like, oh, okay, good. I'm just not going to talk to them about money. I would be a dick and ask them all of the questions that lead them to the conclusion.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed. You're a dick.
So yes, exactly. Good. Go with your skill set, right?
Well, but yeah, I mean, hey, listen, when you're really good at something, don't let it go. When you're elite, like work, continue to work on hone that skill. But yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of times when we get together and we joke about stuff, it's so often it's just like, I am so grateful for you because I could never do what you do. You know, it's just like, you know, somebody said, convince me to take your course. I was like, I will block you. You're not allowed to take it. Yeah, no, convince me. No. I'm not. I don't convince people. Business. That's not what I do.
There's a whole spectrum there. I'm also, you wouldn't want to make the mindset stuff. I wouldn't want to make the optimized stuff. I don't want to be good at tenant turnover. I've structured the whole portfolio around properties that help limit tenant turnover, leases that end in the winter, screening for people who will stay long-term. Like everything I've done is to be good at that.
Yeah.
So I'm not good at the things you do. Like you've done a bunch of rehabs. I've done one for myself, maybe 2 or 3 for friends, right? I don't want to be good at that. I don't want to know how cabinets go in. I don't want to know. I like the butcher block thing was fun. I hope I never do it again. like we can be different. And I think that helps because I think there's a lot of people out there that are very handy and know that they could put the sweat equity in and be really successful like you. There's also people out there who work full time, have
Yep.
kids, maybe they're a single parent, they don't have the time or energy, and they want to find that rent ready or already occupied property, put very little work into it, target the properties that aren't going to have high tenant turnover, and are able to grow a small enough portfolio to have financial freedom. I'll never be, I don't say never, I'll probably never be a deca millionaire. Like
What's
that net worth in the tens of millions. I'm okay.
Okay.
I don't need that. So it hovers around $3, a couple $100,000 a year in cash flow after everything. I could scuba dive anywhere and not have to worry about it. There's people all along that spectrum. But this video today,
Glad you called it a spectrum.
I wanted to give time for people to catch that there was a live on a Friday, because this is not a normally scheduled time. It's not the bat channel. It's not the same bat time to date our ages. The 2025 housing crisis. We are going to see more and more, or as many, Crash Bro videos that have a kernel of truth to spin an entire lie on. And we get attacked too. I've been a Crash Bro on commercial real estate. I think we all the three amigos, the four Avengers have been for 4 years now. When syndications first started coming out in 2021, and we were making videos talking about they're projecting rent growth of 20% like we had last year. They're projecting interest rates staying low. Sorry, if the door.
I get it.
Goes, I have to. So we were saying, well, this is all wishful thinking. All right.
Yeah. Go do your thing. So for those of you who are wondering why DION left so unceremoniously, it's because he has an inspector there that has to look at one of his systems. So for this guy who doesn't really do rehabs, he certainly does have a lot of inspectors hanging around his house. But I think one of the things that DION was talking about was the real estate crisis of 2025. I can tell you that in my market, single families have gone down a little bit. I can tell you that there has been less traffic, but we're also coming out of winter. We expected a far different, much more negative. And again, this isn't political, but it's factual with what people were saying when we were asking them. What we've seen that a lot of people that were very, very negative about the plans for 2025 with a Democratic win, that they were very positive with a Republican win. Now, obviously, that's skewed based on who you ask, because it's whether or not they voted Republican or whether or not they voted Democrat. I think the interesting thing is kind of how the market has gone. Is everybody expected that on the Democratic, on the Republican side, that it would be very pro-growth and very inflationary and all this other stuff. I think a lot of people missed a lot of the speeches where Donald Trump and Elon Musk would talk about there's going to be pain, there's going to be pain, there's going to be pain. Now we're seeing some of that pain for sure. And there's other ancillary factors. But as a person who's negotiated many multi-million-dollar contracts and deals, I can tell you that this is no different than any of those deals that are being negotiated. It's Simon, the uneducated economist, calls it the credible threat, which is you really have to be willing to do things, or actually do those things and be willing to stick to it until you get the result that you wanted. So what's really interesting about what we're seeing now is in my market, single families have gone down a little bit. Still, they are down from their peak. We had a property that we listed for $450, the CMA, the certified marketing analysis. That said $450, we were at $4.25. We couldn't get any offer above $400. The ones that we got in the threes, they wouldn't come up at all. And the number was just, I'm not going to sell for that. We had another property that we did a CMA on. It was at $4.25. We ended up out the door at $392. So we were about, 7% off on that. So it's kind of interesting. Quite frankly. And so, as I look at the market, what's very interesting is small multifamily, single family, duplex, triplex, quadplex, duplex, triplex, quadplex in my area, are up. They're still breaking records. It's kind of annoying because you guys know that's my favorite asset. I would like nothing more for there to be a crash in my area in small multifamily. I need there to be a crash in my area of small multifamily because it's not happening and they're getting more and more and more ridiculously expensive. To give you to put some in perspective for you, 5 years ago, I could buy a really, really, really nice duplex, probably 4 beds, 4-bedroom on each side. So it's a big old duplex, 4-bedroom on each side, and 1 bath on each side, because that's the way that stuff comes in our area. So you'd be 4-1 on each side. You could usually buy that building for about $400K. And now those buildings consistently trade between 600,000 and 700,000. Now the rents on those units are $3,000 to $3,200 a month. Again, just do the math. So what's crazy about this model is that the single family homes are going down, factually, and the single family or the duplexes and triplexes and quads are going up. We are now breaking records where we're seeing quadplexes sell for over $1 million. That's $250,000 a door. That's really expensive, especially with what you have to then get for rent for it. So it's one of those interesting things that I think, every market's different. Every market's unique, making sure that you're doing your buy box in your market, making sure that you're doing your rent box, because the rent box on the other side of the buy box is absolutely critical. Too often people mistake what they can actually get for rent. And guess what? You could all of a sudden not be making money. Craig says, I just saw that pop up, and anytime I see a number, I shouldn't probably tell you this. Anytime I see a number, my eye goes to it. So 650K here and rents about 2,200 per side here. Yeah. See, and so, do those deals make sense? At 650 and 2,200 for rent, you're $4,400 for rent. The problem is that you get a note on 650,000. You're going to be 30% down. So you're likely going to owe $480,000 on it, and you're going to be 7,000 or 7%. So you're looking at $3,600 a month. With expenses, you might be $3,800 a month. So you're crushing a cool $400 a month. And so, yeah, Anise and Krill, the math ain't mathin'. You're exactly right. The math ain't mathin'. However, there's plenty of parts of the country where the math's fine. 650 in that market. I mean, God bless Craig, and I hope it all works out. But how many of those can you possibly do? You can't do a ton of them. You just can't. The issue is how many can you do, period. But then you're $1,800. But Jim B, what you talk about is $1,200 to $1,500 for a $250,000, quad. Like, that's heaven on earth. You're at $6,000 a month compared to Craig's market, where, you're driving 6 G's a month. Let's just say you're driving only $4,800 a month. You're driving $4,800 a month. He's driving $4,400 a month, and his property is 2.5 times more expensive. This is how crazy that is. So it's just one of those insane things. We'll run down through some questions until Dion joins us back. We'll do all the highs. Hi guys. Eddie B. Trucking, Corby, Hyder, Dion Wannabe, CJ, Jim B, Oscar, Jason Calasabetta, Hyder, my buddy. How you doing, pal? R1 Life, Hattori Dorman, Julie Anderson. Hey, Julie. KS, good morning. Good afternoon. Actually, it's afternoon on the East Coast. DM Wannabe, I've learned so much from both of you. You guys are different, and that is good. Thank you very much for saying. Deanna and I, we love the opportunity to work with people and help and give back. It's a lot of fun. We're super blessed to be able to do it. I'll say blessed, and he'll say the universe smiled upon him. We both have our versions. Big Hill, how are you? All-Nighter Hider. I know how important some of the decisions I make are to a job. It may not be easy to relinquish control of that, but my body hurts and I don't want to work so much anymore. I think if I replace those, those choices with going scuba diving, I'll be fine. Yes, that's absolutely it. And that's one of the things that we see with a lot of contractors is they get into their 40s and 50s and 60s and stuff doesn't work as well. Getting down on your knees and spending your day on your knees, working on plumbing fixtures and things like that. Sitting down or squatting and needing to do electrical outlets. Why is it that all these things are at 18 inches off the floor, which is like the worst spot to have to do anything? I think it's a conspiracy theory. KS, would you do a lease option with a seller? No depreciation, but a 3% interest rate. So I don't have nearly enough information, KS, to tell you if I would do that deal. I think very often the mistake that people make is in looking at deals like that they don't involve their expert CPA or their expert money person. We are money experts in our business. Absolutely. But what we don't know is legislation as it sits today and legislation as it might occur in the future, specifically local legislation of, hey, there's this bill and it's going to pass and this is when it's going into effect. We just had something take effect that was voted on in 2020. 5 years later, and it just went into effect. Everybody's suffering from whiplash, going, what the heck? What the heck? What the heck? And so, that's where any deal spectrum that I'm looking through, I'm trying to understand how it applies to today, what my flow is, and then what other decisions that forces me to make in my business. So being a CEO like I was and really running businesses, and departments, the thing that I always had to consider was, how does this fit into the grand scheme? And are we putting ourselves in a position to force other decisions if we do a deal structured like this? So that's what I would tell you is that on its face, yeah, I look at deals like that and I go, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but it really matters overall what you're trying to accomplish with your portfolio and how you want to get there, what level of risk you want to use to get there. That's really where it kind of comes into play for me. And Dion will come back in the next, he said he would only be gone 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll give him a hard time when he rejoins no matter what. Replace work with any ocean activities. One would be fine. Big Hill. I like being by the ocean. I don't like being on it or in it, but I like being by it. Yep. I like to see the ocean. So I will own oceanfront property someday, but it's not so I can be close to the beach and I can spend time in the sand and I can run in the water. It's not going to be for that. It's purely going to be because I like the sound and I like what it looks like. JP Property Consulting. Good morning, everyone. Flavio, how are you, sir? Craig, thanks for the input. Jim B, thank you for the input again. Anise was exactly right. The math wasn't mathing. Oscar, would you build an ADU on your single family home being that they are going lower? So I won't build one with my personal property because I don't need one. I don't see the value. There's no real value there for me putting one where I am. Would I buy properties that are single family houses that I believe I can add an ADU to? Yes, absolutely. There's one town that I've got kind of 30 or 40 lots already pre-screened that I know that they would meet all the criteria. The town just hasn't passed the statute yet. They're fighting it with everything that they have. I don't know why. They just are. But if and when that passes, I will start heavily marketing to all of those 40 specific people, and I'll probably create a few deals a year. And those will be great deals because I'll pay quote unquote retail for the house, but then I'll be able to do an ADU on something that's in a really nice area that's really good. How was that inspection?
Super nice guy. Was not expecting that.
Yeah. So you're passed?
Yeah, I've got a couple tiny tweaks that don't even need a reinspection that I got to do. Apparently, straps are at a wider angle than they should be.
Yeah. So won't keep it still.
Whatever. He had to find something,
Yeah. So what we were talking about was Oscar's question of, would you build an ADU on your single family homes, being that they are going lower? Because in our area, single families are going down. And my answer was, no, I wouldn't. I don't need it on mine, but I've got kind of like 30 or 40 pre-scoped lots in the towns that I do businesses in that would fit what I believe the criteria will be that the towns just haven't approved yet. So then I can go and make an offer and try and buy those properties, and I can buy them for pretty reasonable. Even if I'm having to buy them at about market, it gives me the ability to build an ADU for $75,000 that then is going to cash flow, $1,800 a month. And, even if I got to borrow 100 plus the taxes, it's going to end up being $700 or $800 a month, but I'm going to be at 18 for renting out the unit. So it's just, okay, I can buy the property. I can make $300, $400, $500 on the main house. I can make another 1,000 plus on the ADU. So it's basically a detached duplex at that point that I'm making $1,500 a month on, which will go up in time. Go ahead.
The thing to be concerned with ADUs is understanding your municipalities. You know where you work and what it's like. I've got a city where I have a triplex. The city told me, hey, we recommend you put a fourth unit. It's R4. You can do this. There's the space for it. And they were all excited. Sounds great, right?
Right.
They said, but in order to do that, You're on a septic system. There's no issues with it. We want you to connect to the city. And if you connect to the city, so this wasn't the bad part. It was, so they have RSUs.
Yep.
Or RE, whatever it is, residential equivalent, let's say unit, would be 4, because I'm not connecting the new one. I'm connecting all 4. Yeah. It was about $24,000 to connect, then the work to do it. And then there was about a $15,000 impact fee. All of that. Okay. So I'm 50, 60 grand to just get hooked up to their sewer. Then I got to build the ADU or the 4th unit. And then they said, but we also want you to take the sewer line from the main street past your property to all the houses behind it on the side street for about $300,000. So they just think owners have hundreds of thousands of dollars to throw into projects. Zuber ran into it in California where they said, oh, you can absolutely do an ADU. Add solar.
Yep.
Right. To the price of doing it and everything. So what is the city... And be ready for things to change. My friends bought a place and then we're going to build an ADU duplex. So it's a duplex going in with ADU. City approves the plans. They've spent $7,000 getting the plans drawn up. Then the city changes their mind. So they're 6 months in. They got to do this squirrel study in Washington that takes 6 months. And then they change their mind. Then they say, well, you can build a single family house, which doesn't make the deal work. So dealing with the cities is what almost always blows up ADU deals.
It very much is. So one of the interesting things is, and I'm not sure what's happening in your state, but in our state, the state is saying that they want control over municipalities on zoning matters like this, which I would absolutely love, because then you have a one state standard and you build to that one state standard. And then that would actually make a development absolutely blow up. Like, it would get ridiculous because everybody and their brother would be doing ADUs in their single family homes. The problem is that this has been a conversation for 5 years and I feel like they haven't gotten any closer. So that's why I'm selling off my single families. Like, I'll still like tomorrow, if they approve it, I will do a bunch of money. I'll throw a bunch of money into marketing to those 40 places, and I'll spend a bunch of time finding another 40 or 50 more just to find a few deals. Like, I love the detached duplex idea, you know?
Yeah.
But to that end,
what my triplex is.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a detached
house and a duplex. I have no idea which one. I have no idea which one is the ADU.
Yeah, exactly. Love Cavs says, OMG, I finally caught alive. We're good to have you here. Investwall says, hello, Ninja Vanish 247. Jim B, watch Zuber's latest video. Very intriguing. Which video was that? Because depending on what time of day it is, it could be any one of 700 different videos. So
he does put out a prolific amount of content, which is good, because I would rather have so much that I can go, okay, that's the guest I really like to watch and pick through it, than waiting 3 or 4 days for something new to come out. That would suck if you watch my channel and you wanted more, because I'm not doing more than 3 a week.
Oh, dude, I'm brutal. It's like you got your live and that's it. And then shorts. Anise says, here in Spokane, the best cap rates are in the ghetto. They always are, Anise. Everywhere in the country, your best cap rates are always going to be in the ghetto. That's what attracts the investors that don't know what they're doing. And then they buy that stuff and they're like, holy crap, I got to use a flak jacket to go pick up rent. That's usually how it goes.
It's the third reason down on why I would never use the 1% rule.
Absolutely 1,000%. And even cap rates. I don't use cap rates for anything. Unless it's a real commercial property. But even then, I'm far more likely to use, the rock method, return on my capital, because that's what I care about. Installing flooring is just like doing burpees all day. Exactly right, Hyder. And I'm a heavy guy and I'm big. I'm 6'1", 250, 260.
I'm the lazy guy. And if you want to find the easiest way to do something, ask the lazy person, right?
It's true.
Go out to your local.
I was just going to say, you're not going to do
not
it.
Ace Hardware. What's the other one?
your
local car.
Yeah.
Where you buy all your car parts at. I don't know which the local ones are. Manny, Mo, and Jack in the South. But get yourself a creeper. One of the ones that folds up to where you can sit on it, and then you lay on your chest on that. I've done flooring where you don't get up and down at all. And you can roll to the material, roll to where you're putting it in. It's kindergarten simple.
I've used one of those. Let's see. Dan Hawkins. Flavio Macia says, you are so transparent, so much information for free. Thank you. You're welcome. Dan Hawkins, when you do consider politics, when you pick a location, example, Arizona is running out of water. Canada may increase electricity for New England. Yep. So I would dare them to increase electricity. I'm not sure if so. The challenge is, and Dan, this isn't at you. This is at people that watch social media. Those people are idiots and they have no clue what they're talking about. The fact of the matter is that for them to shut down hydropower is extremely difficult because they have to stop making it for them too. The bigger issue, quite frankly, and this is what's really funny about the entire thing. Do you know how in debt the energy sector for Quebec, which is who makes all of our, who makes a bunch of this power, do you know how in debt they are? $55 billion. And they're not America. That's a ton of money for Canada. They're $55 billion in debt. If they cut off even 20% of the power that they're getting paid for, guess what? They go insolvent in about 9 seconds. So that's where all of this stupidity on social media is just exactly that. It's uninformed stupidity. How do I know this? I don't know. I did a little bit of research, but also I have some friends in the electrical industry. I also worked for a company in Canada, and I can tell you that electric cars are all over Montreal because electricity is outrageously inexpensive. And your other option is gas by the liter at, $2.69 a liter, not the gallon, a liter. So what people don't understand is that it's very inexpensive to do electric there because of their hydropower, because of all the dams and everything that they have off of the different rivers. But it's completely delusional for them to be able to say, we're just going to shut power off down to you guys, or we're just going to increase the price. Then we would just we could shut off because we can outlast them. They wouldn't last days. They would go insolvent. The other really important piece to look at is that does anybody know what percentage of Canada's GDP we are? We're about 21% of Canada's GDP. 21%. Yeah, not a big number. Oh, wait, it's a massive number. It's over 20% of their economy. Does anybody know what portion of Mexico's GDP we are? We are 40% of Mexico's GDP. So go ahead, F around and find out. We would have kids running through the halls, shutting off every light switch and button. It's not a big deal for us, and we're the ones that have the leverage because they can't afford these massive, massive hits. To give you an example, Canada, 2.7% of our GDP. It's a fart. It's unimportant. It will impact people, yes, but not the grand scheme. So to your point, to answer your question, Dan, yes, long-winded answer, but to answer your question, I'm far more concerned about the state politics. I don't care about the rest of it. I want to know the state politics and the area politics where I'm investing. I want to know that Section 8 will rent there and that they're good, that they're a good authority, that they're easy to work with. Dion's got one that he will never work with. I've got one that I'll never work with. And it's because the juice isn't worth the squeeze and we want to help people get housing. So it does come into play. It doesn't come into play as big as Arizona. Like for years, everybody said Las Vegas was running out of water. They make a couple of tweaks and the Lake Mead is almost back where it needs to be. So yeah, I think more on the very localized level, because heaven knows if Arizona were about to run out of water, that the federal government would be there in full force, making sure to create the opportunity that they need to create water. That's just what would happen. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because you worked with regulatory a lot.
Yeah, so I definitely consider politics. Not that I care which side is in office. You need to have a plan for whichever side is in office. And yeah, we do have a completely bifurcated. We have two sides. I've heard you say that you like to invest in New Hampshire because it's basically the free growth state. Yeah. They know they make their money off of property taxes, so they're landlord friendly.
Yep.
I specifically target a blue state that isn't landlord friendly because it eliminates a lot of the competition, makes building really hard. So it makes appreciation massive. Google it. For over a decade, Washington State is the #1 appreciating state of the whole country because it's left leaning, because it's really hard to build, because they have stupid laws. They're just on the verge of rent control passing, which will make me stupid rich. Yeah, it'll suck. It'll make some more tenants homeless. It'll make tenants' rents go up, but it's going to make me a ton of money. And I hear a lot of people that say, well, I want to invest where the politics are more landlord friendly. You mean like everyone else wants to invest where it's more landlord friendly? So consider the politics and see if it aligns with your strategy.
Agreed. I think the other thing too is that I think we've been painting with too broad of a brush rent control, because in California, I agree with you, the 5% plus GDP, okay, that's going to make you rich. But in Minneapolis, St. Paul at 3%,
yeah,
that's not going to make you rich. That's going to cripple housing. And what it's going to do is it's going to make sure that you're in a race to the bottom. So I think that rent control isn't created equal. There is a difference there. But yeah, Dion said it exactly. He's exactly right too. Why I love my market. It's because I'm aligned with the government in my market, which is live free or die. And we're going to tax the hell out of you on your property. But we want people not paying sales tax, not paying income tax. There's a bonus, if you will, or a cost. That actually is what keeps us in a really strong position. Is it's so expensive to build, and the taxes are so high when you do build. Guess what? The barrier of entry is high that way. So barrier of entry is what Dion was talking about. And it can be a number of different barriers. Which barrier can you live with mentally and emotionally? I couldn't live with Dion's barriers. I would be. Well,
you do rehabs and you do burrs and you do flips. Right. I buy and I hold.
Absolutely.
The laws here benefit the buy and hold. They
absolutely
F over the flipper, the burr, the value add, all of those other strategies. Make sure the politics align with your
absolutely
strategy.
That's absolutely the key. And it's how you right size, and it's how you make sure that you're happy doing it where you're doing it. Josh Burdick went to both channels and handed out a like. Thank you, Josh. What's going on, Chester? Good to see you, sir. Anna K, good to see you in a live. Ivan Zaniga, howdy, Heidi ho. Monkey Huevos, I love the name. It took me a year and a half.
Nuts.
What's that?
Baboon nuts.
Yeah, exactly. It took me a year and a half to complete an ADU in San Diego due to city permit issues. So we've heard that. I know somebody that got a hard money loan at 11%, and it's an additional point for every 90-day extension, and it took them over a year to get the permits. I have never had a permit take more than 21 days. 21 days, that's it. I can get a permit. So
the city I'm in has a lady waiting over 3 years for her siding permit. And then I found out 1,000 square feet or less, no permit needed. So I did half of the duplex. And then the next project was the other half of the duplex.
It's very interesting. I like how you split that up. Cassidy Ironman, any thoughts on tiny homes on trailers? My county just made it easier to put them on your property. Getting a studio equivalent rental for $50K seems interesting. So yes, I love them. The rules, it's really about what Deanna and I were just talking about, which is the local rules. You know, taking that tiny home and putting it on a slab, then it's a house, then it can be financed. If it's still on the trailer with wheels, then it doesn't apply. It doesn't qualify for a number of standard financing. So it really is the devil in the details. But Cassidy, to that point, yeah, if any of my places opened up the door, I'd have 40 of them ordered and ready to be delivered tomorrow. Like I'm on the waiting list at Boxable. Do you know that I have no idea where I'm going to put it when mine's finally done? No clue. I'll figure it out. When they're just like, yeah, your order's ready. Oh, I'm going to have to get back to you in a couple of days with an address. I have no idea where I'm going to put it, but I'm still on the list. Dion, any thoughts on the tiny home thing?
I think it's a strategy that if you focus and master that strategy, you'd be great at it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Take Roe, the guy that became the co-host of the Bigger Pockets with David Green for like the last year. Yeah. Rob Built. I'm not sure how you say his name. Genius strategy, puts up like 30 tiny homes on, gets his consistently the same investing strategy. I don't know that it would be good for somebody in my position, small portfolio, the least amount of units, right amount of cash flow, to then figure out a new strategy of what is my city like? Does it like it on the wheels? Does it like it mounted on the ground? On the ground, they get to tax it like an upgraded structure to the property. On the wheels, they don't. what are the rents for that in an area. But if you had several of them, you would learn, okay, this is what works. And again, you're putting in a residential equivalency unit. What is going to be the impact for connecting to power, connecting to water, connecting to sewer? Or are they going to let you put in a septic system?
Sure.
Right? There's all of this. It's not just the cost of the building. It's the cost of everything aggregate that it takes to put that thing in place.
Yeah, totally agree. David Cardone, damn, I better hurry up and buy before this market crash everyone is talking about.
Yeah, and so there actually is some valid information out there where in 2021, interest rates dropped so low to where commercial lenders, builders could borrow money and start projects that took 3 years. They're finishing. Houston just added 50,000 units this year. So you're going to see real estate is local. You'll see certain areas that are impacted by rents coming down, house prices coming down. Market wide, we're up year over year. My state's up almost 10% year over year. My rents are up by your math on my 2 turnovers over 9% year over year.
Yeah.
So real estate is local, Chris, and I think it's not hurry up and buy before the crash. It's anyone telling you to hurry should be blocked, and anyone telling you to wait should be blocked.
Yeah, it's very market dependent. Chris added a question. I'm trying to figure out the best way to find a detached ADU or probably fund a detached ADU on my primary residence parcel. The state is encouraging ADU and the city has the same stance as the state. Any suggestions for a loan? Yeah, start making phone calls. That's what anybody in your position has to do. You're not going to, with it being brand new, you're not going to find some other investor that's already been down this path 100 times. You're going to find somebody else that might've been down the path once. Just start making phone calls. Look at your banks. Look at all the ones that have something in your area, location in your area. None of the big nationals, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, don't do any of the nationals. All of the smaller banks in your area, typically 7 locations or fewer, typically $2 billion AUM, assets under management, or smaller, and just start making a bunch of phone calls. That's what's going to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think one of the first calls I would make would be to Convoy Home Loans. Say you're from the one rental at a time community. Those 2 guys talk on Zuber's channel all the time, and at least get in, onto a Zoom call and say, this is what I'm trying to do. What does the loan products look like? If they don't have the product you're looking for, they probably know who does.
Right. Yep, it's true. Yeah, John, fantastic there. I've done a number of calls with John. In fact, we're going to do some deals together. I'm literally just waiting for a variance to be approved or something called a CUP, a change of use permit. I'm turning a single family home into a duplex. And we'll know next Tuesday if I win. York, PA says, I love watching the success you are having, finally catching you live while traveling in California. Love to hear that. Thanks for the kind words. If I knew what success you were having, I would be happy to hear it too. I like people being successful that watch us.
I love watching your success. You had a good job. You were successful at your job, but you have, it's like, I forget, 19 kids under 5, right? So you have a few kids. Not a regret, but one of the things that I don't like about the way my life played out is that when my kids were the age of your kids, I was like you, working 55, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So to watch someone in that position that I was in, that you were in, able to walk away from success, right? Not just because you're successful in real estate, but you were successful in your career.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
And you were able to go, that's cool. This parenting thing with this time freedom, so much more important.
I mean, you had a lot to do with that, you insulting jerk. Yeah. DION used to constantly send me the Pink Panther sleeping. He's like, hey, I bet your kids miss you today. Like, F off, DION.
Very important work I was doing.
Yeah, exactly. It was
now we're tag teaming Millennial Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my word. It's relentless. We're constantly on him about this, that, or the other. The poor guy. It's kind of crazy.
And now with 2 kids.
I know. Yeah. It's crazy. James Walsh, any advice on how to deal with tenants who hate each other for many reasons? They constantly call, text me about tattling on each other, parking smells, noise, etc. First multi may go back to only singles. I mean, that's where I think he introduced the rules of Thunderdome. I
was going to say boxing gloves. Yeah. Thunderdome's good.
Yep.
So I've had this a few times. I'm sure you have too. Where,
thankfully, DION, it's been, I call it the quiet psycho call. Just have a really very calm conversation with them and just say, I'm going to be very, very clear on this. If you can't figure out how to solve the problem, I'm going to solve it. You're not going to like the response. So if I get one more phone call from you about something that they're doing that isn't illegal, it's not going to go well for you.
That's
all it's worked
a
for
little
me.
more passive aggressive, I think. So I really have this one duplex where they just can't stand each other.
Oh.
I think they worked together. There was some flirting. It didn't work out. So they live next to each other. It's one of those things. So I just tell them both. And they watch my content. So I'll just be transparent. This is how I handle it. Here's the non-emergency police number. Yeah. Call and have a police officer tell you you're being a child. Yep. It's not my job.
Yep.
That's exactly how I said it to both of them.
Yep.
I haven't heard a thing since.
Yep. We had one this last week, and I told her, I said, that is not a landlord issue. That is a tenant. That is a roommate issue. I said, and if this was literally within the same unit. And so I said, so it's up to you. And I said, you're just going to have to call the police because I'm not here to referee between you two and who left the sink filled with dishes. 2 girls. Ivan Zaniga, listing my property today to rent by the room. Any tips? Yeah, make sure it's legal. That'd be where I would start. Make sure that you legally can rent out by the room, because most places in the country, it is illegal for you to rent out things by the room unless you have a certain level of zoning.
Yeah. There's some municipality in Washington State. It's now legal in all, but I think 2 cities where you can't have more than 3 unrelated adults living on the property. So know your local laws. But I think my advice, Ivan, is if you're listing it for that, you probably are maybe already have done your research on that. Yep. I like to do open house format for tours for people who are interested in renting something. And it's not because I want to create demand. It is because I want to see how the applicant interacts with people that aren't important to them. Everyone can be nice to the new landlord. Everyone can be nice to their boss or potential boss during an interview. But how are they going to treat the other applicants who show up? Because your existing tenants who live in the other rooms are going to have to deal with this person. Part of my criteria is the person isn't a douchebag when they show up. I mean, it's not a tangible write down thing, but it is if they show up and they're rude or condescending to the other people that are looking at the place, I don't want my existing tenants to have to deal with that. So that's one of the criteria that I kind of add unofficially.
Yeah, I agree. Andres Matos. Hello guys. Thank you for all you do. I have a $600,000 earning 4% in interest. Should I use it to pay off my rentals and buy a new one? Seems we are in a buyer's market. I would not pay down your mortgages, your inexpensive mortgages. I would not pay down your inexpensive mortgages to go, hey, I just paid down 3.5% or 4% debt, and I just got some new 7.5% debt. Aren't I awesome? Nope, I wouldn't do that. That's not what I would do.
I'll go one further. Let's say you have 7% interest on your current mortgages. I would not pay that off.
Nope.
I would buy new properties with a 7% mortgage because you're starting a new depreciation schedule. You're starting new levered appreciation. You've already incurred the cost of acquiring the good debt that has the current 7% interest rate. Why have that expense then pay it off when you can have that expense to get new debt? For me, paying down debt, I did it once. It was a mistake that cost me over $1 million. I don't want to do that again. And I like the idea of having new depreciation schedules. I had a friend reach out this morning. They're saying, hey, we had our first rental. I don't understand how come we're paying taxes. And well, it's from their W-2. They worked a ton of overtime. And I had to explain, yeah, this is rental income. Are you paying any taxes on your rental income? Because levered depreciation is how we have income that we don't end up paying a lot of taxes on, or in some cases, any taxes on. So I'm a fan of growing. I don't want to pay it off. If you're financially free, you have the portfolio the size you want, maybe pay off debt. I don't even like it then. I don't know that I'll ever do it unless I go to do seller financing at the end, sell a property, pay off all the debt, seller finance the whole portfolio. But it's a part of the strategy. It's not a part of the growth or maintenance phase.
No, I totally agree. I can't believe DION had that answer. I'm a little bit shocked. I was like, this is feeling eerily like ick.
Right, but I didn't say take out debt on your paid off properties
either.
So I'm going to go as far as what you do.
I mean, it felt a little icky. I won't lie. It felt a little icky. Ivan Zaniga, we'll be doing Facebook groups and maybe Hemlane. Here's what I can tell you, Ivan. Facebook groups is absolutely something that local municipalities watch. I'm just telling you, just make sure, please, just make sure that it's legal for you to do it. Because I can tell you in Las Vegas, 3% of Airbnbs were legal. They've spent the last 6 months handing out fees to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars. People getting $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 fines. If you don't want to be working out a payment arrangement with your city, please just do the due diligence. And if it's good, or if it's because in Las Vegas, it was understood that Airbnbs needed to have a license, but there was no enforcement. Well, guess what? Now there's enforcement and people are literally getting their knees taken out with these massive fines. Just don't want to see you get stuck like that. So I would just make sure that it's legal. Yeah, Chris, fund and build an ADU did answer that. Hey, Beth Traverso, the show just got a whole lot classier. Manuel Castellanos, Vegas will never run out of water. It's propaganda. We the locals know. So Manuel, I completely agree with you. I did my research just to make sure, but I felt very confident with what things looked like. And again, based on, I won't bore everybody with the details, but it's based on who actually consumes the most. And the fact that California actually consumes a lot of that water, they can literally just shut California off if they really wanted to. So the good news is that I completely agree with you, Manuel, and thank you for chiming in. All Nighter says a few tweaks and Guton Lake is back. I agree with that. Chris Webb, hello from Central Virginia. Hello, Chris. Ninja Vanish is going to go watch Papa Powell speak. That's our good Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Julie Anderson, Deanna and I live in a crazy town, but the appreciation is nice. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. But do you know that in the places that appreciate like that you are the most susceptible to a collapse based on the numbers? Just because if you look at Vegas, they didn't have, they had all of that same type of legislation years ago. Stockton, California was another one. Stockton had exactly the same thing. Stockton went up 300% and 400%, and then it went down like 80. And so it was one of those things where they were one of the places where everybody that was taking pictures with their film crew, they would drive down the street because every single house was for sale, every single one. So that's just one of the risks. The nice thing is always on the upside. And I'm not saying that this will happen again. I'm just saying that there is a correlation to the other markets where that occurred 15 years ago. And that's what occurred in those other markets where they had the biggest depreciation because they obviously had the highest number to come down off of. But then what happens? A supply demand issue, right? I mean, the rents, let me be clear. The rents aren't what change. It's the property values. And then you just have to worry about, your governance and the deals that you have with your banks. Let's see. Hyder says, seems like I'm not seeing all the comments. That just means a lot of people blocked you, bro.
Or they're showing up on the other channel.
It's true.
Right. They're probably all on Matt's.
That's exactly what it is. Let's see. Hey, Jerry, how are you? Good to see you, sir. Wealth Building Journey. Rob Abasalo. Yep. Is his real name. I don't fully remember. Yep. Robill. Yep. That's exactly right. Arlan, the neighbor's property right next to the property I just purchased has a bunch of junk outside. Pretty bad eyesore. I am wanting to put up a fence, but not sure if I should say something to him. So what you actually do is you make an anonymous tip to the city. That's what you do. You have to look at what the zoning is and if they're allowed to have that type of disgustingness outside. And then that's how you do it. You do not want to start off on that foot with that neighbor. They will make sure just to report your tenants for every little thing they do forever, unless they're DION. James says, love rentals and its many benefits, but now hate managing 11 tenants, keeping my portfolio, but afraid to buy again. Either of you ever think about being private money lender for the 10% interest? Yeah, no, nope. DION.
So let's say you could lend money at 20% interest. Guaranteed return. You have no levered appreciation. You have no levered depreciation. After owning a rental for 3 years, I'm averaging over 30% cash on cash return. So the 20% isn't even attractive then. Sounds like what you need is either better systems for self-managing, because if it is a challenge to self-manage, that's what happens. Our brain says, I don't want to add anymore. It's too much work already. Or maybe you have the personality type to justify having a property manager. So yeah, your returns might not be as much, but you're still getting levered appreciation and depreciation. You'll have potential rent increases. You can optimize your portfolio. yeah, for a while, your property manager might make more than you. But there
Mhm.
is no asset class that is attractive to me as real estate is, depending on my desire for financial freedom, my limited investing funds, right? So I've got a friend, Dave. Uh, Dave likes to race his Corvette on the track and race his motorcycles. So my brothers call him Racist Dave because he races. And it's awesome. Dave's great. But he invests in notes. And that's it. Like, he doesn't own rentals or anything. He tried it one time, didn't like it. He was in the city of Tacoma, which I wouldn't have liked it either. And he just invested in notes. So maybe your personality says there is something better out there than rentals. But I think I would consider a property manager before I would go, yeah, I'm just going to walk away from this, because
1,000%.
it's buying and holding that decade or 15 years that makes you sit back and go. And I had this exact experience.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I'm making pretty good money with my rentals. I like doing this. I'm going to make a DSCR offer on this next property. So I interact with Convoy Home Loans, and they required this grown-up person piece of paper that I'd never done before called a personal financial statement. And I had to put down basically what happened in my portfolio over 10 years. And I thought, holy crap, I'm a multi-millionaire. I wouldn't even realize it if I didn't have to make that paper. And that didn't happen from owning rentals. That happened from owning rentals and a decade passing. So,
yeah, I think that the other piece of it too is, in all likelihood, the people that need that money at that rate, they have better lawyers than you do. And a lot of times they have the money, but they're using your money. What? No, thank you. Because guess what? It only takes one bad one, or it only takes one of those to go sideways, and you just lost years and years and years of equity that you put together. And it's not whether or not you win or lose the lawsuit. It's the fact that you have to do one. And I can tell you the simplest of lawsuits to get something like this done, even when they haven't made payments and you get a bunch of default statements and all this, the cheapest lawsuit that you're going to do is about 50 or 60,000 bucks. That's the cheapest one you're going to find, is 50 to 60 grand. So recognize that that could be a loss of 20 or 30% or 40% of the money that you put out there for somebody to get at 10%. But that's just based on all the numbers that I've run. All Nighter Hider says, wait to buy if you're not ready. Don't wait to investigate buying if you are ready. As time in the market is key. Yep. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. 100%. Let's see. Aloha from lovely Watsonville, California. Hey, Frank. Good to see you. Good to see you. Cynthia, I'm sure, is watching this as well. I'm just kidding. I know Frank's watching it while he works. Chris Webb. Yes. 2+U was the rule in Colorado. And I found out it is the same here in Lynchburg. This is a reference to rent by the room. Yep. Yeah. You got to be super careful. They actually got so hard where we are about that stuff that if they found it, they could literally evict the tenants. If they found out and basically showed up with the sheriff and actually pulled IDs, that they could make you leave the property and you couldn't go back until you made arrangements to pick up your stuff. Talk about a nightmare. Imagine being a college kid and having that happen during exam time. And so they put the fear of God into people. Wealth Building Journey says, in the DC suburbs here in Maryland side, rent by the room may become feasible post Doji and workforce trimming.
yep. I think you have a window of opportunity to buy when the prices are down before things recover.
I agree.
I think if you wait too long to buy, prices might start going up. The problem is, when you buy while prices are down, there might not be the rental demand because of the job cuts that are happening. So you might have the right window to buy where rents aren't great, but then in a few years, when prices recover, rents will also. I'm not a DC guy investor. I'm not a rent by the room investor. That is my literally 3,000 miles away perspective.
Yeah. One of the things that I would look into is something called H-1B visa renting. When you find a company that has a bunch of people that they bring in on an H-1B visa, one of the requirements is that they actually provide that person the housing, and then they basically take it out of their pay. So the wisest thing to do is to find a company that really, and just Google it. You'll find it's pretty easy to Google the list of the top 20 or 30 H-1B visa providers in your area. When you do that lookup, they have to provide that housing, and they can charge whatever they want for it, but they want to find nice, clean housing that people want to live in, and they're not looking to live high on the hog. So we actually do a ton of that work with H-1B visa companies. And we have, there are easiest rentals. There are least expensive rentals, or they're some of our most expensive rentals, but they're some of our easiest because the company just wants to know everything's taken care of, and they want to know that you're good management and you'll take care of stuff. But you can absolutely you can get an absolute huge premium. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Let's see. DION, do you want to take over questions for a bit?
Sure. Cassidy Ehrman.
Yep.
Thoughts on mortgage recasting to get a lower payment without reducing the term of the debt? Have you done it? And you've done recasting, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. I mean, it's really truly just about running the numbers. This is a math question. So for me, the math is really simple. If in recasting it, I'm creating a bunch more profit that I don't want to get taxed on, then I'm not going to recast. If I'm looking to recast because there's some benefit to that, then absolutely. So yeah, I've absolutely recast debt, but I don't want a bunch of profit. Go ahead. Do your thing. All right. So we'll let DION go handle his thing. But yeah, it's a great question. But yeah, recasting debt is the challenge. Hold on one second. Okay. The tenants are doing the heavy lifting on the mortgage for you. Yes, true. All-nighter. I may acquire an old mobile home in Bullhead City, Arizona. I need to run the numbers on a new build for the RAL strategy. It's a corner lot with an empty lot next to it. Time to run some numbers. Dude, I love that. Absolutely. That's killer. Income is taxable. Debt is not. Build the equity and get another rental. Atlas, great answer. Absolutely love the response. Let's see. WBJ. Where are these comments Matt is reading? I'm not seeing. Yeah. So, Hyder, myself and DION are doing both on both sides. We're casting on both channels. So if you're on either channel, you can't see the other channels, and it's about split. We have 83 people in the room. It's about split on who's posting. John Parvin, thanks for doing live, gents. John, more than happy to do it. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Mark Koch, sup guys? What's up, Mark? Robert, got my first Section 8 check yesterday. Thank you to YouTube Academy scholars right here. I love that, Robert. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic news. We love getting on the dole like tenants get on the dole. I'm so going to get in trouble for saying that. Arlon, thank you. You're welcome. Wealth building journey, systems management. That's exactly right. That's what we teach in the Lumberjack Landlord Boot Camp. We teach systems management, actually the course, but then in the boot camp, we take it to that even next level up where we're kind of hammering on you for this stuff. All-nighter hider. I feel like Hall & Oates. I'm out of touch. I'm out of time, but I'm out of my head when you're not around. Whoa. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. Well done. That's so good. Hold on one second. I have a conversation occurring on my phone right now, so I'm just trying to see exactly what it is because it's a tenant and it's Friday and it's 1:17 in the afternoon, making sure that it's not something written notice of not renewing. Oh, dude, whatever. Okay. Don't care. Take a flying leap. There's this tenant. There's just like making such a to-do. They're making such a to-do about them moving. And it's like, dude, enough already. Jeez, aloo. It's like, we get it. You're leaving. It's okay. Do you need me to help you pack? Like, what is going on? So anyway, that's just me. Yes, the PFS. So for those of you who don't know what a PFS is, a PFS stands for personal financial statement. You basically have to write your entire financial life down on that piece of paper. It's a very, I don't want to say it's a daunting task. It is kind of, it's so much paperwork that you have to go through. You have to report every single one of your loans. You have to report. I mean, it's just, oh my goodness. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. Yeah. It can be brutal for sure. Personal financial statements are usually about 8 pages long, and then they usually have an attachment that's usually 2 or 3 pages long. So they're a lot of work to put together. Matt, you mentioned a lawyer. When do you think it's good time to start seeking the advice of an attorney in an investment journey? Also, does the type of acquisition lead to different times? Nope. I always want to have an attorney that knows what my business is and knows what I'm trying to do. It's their job to keep me out of horizontal stripes. I choose plaid. I choose against horizontal. And so I always want to have somebody that knows me, knows my business. And so you need to be searching in the very beginning to find who that person is and picking the person that you feel the most comfortable with, that understands your strategy. And then it's going to be, you put them on a couple $1,000 retainer, and it's just, hey, I might have an email that I need to get an answer on, and they charge you a half an hour or whatever to give you the answer. But make sure that you don't make a mistake in the beginning that can cost you a lot of money, because professional tenants will bring you to your knees. They will break you. And this is the way you avoid that. Duplex Dave. Hey, Duplex Dave. The first 5 years is the hardest. So true. Grinding into year 5 now. That's awesome. And what you'll find at the end of year 5 is that it's not easy, but it's gotten a lot easier. And then it gets easier and easier from 5 to 10. And then at 10, it's really about, hey, how big do we want to get here? You know, how big do we want to get? How big do we want to go? That's really what it comes down to. So, yeah. Sid, looks like pad split will be under the scrutiny like Airbnb soon. I checked in Phoenix on this option, and they said you need conditional permit use or rezoning approval. Be careful chasing yield. Sid, crushing it. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier on. Everybody thinks this is an awesome idea. Of course, it is an awesome idea, but guess what? Zoning, they can absolutely crush you. Uh-oh, you had a face. What happened?
It was the neighbor downstairs. Apparently. Oh. So lock the dog up for the inspection.
Yeah.
Need to unlock the dog for the inspection. Dog was tearing up the room.
Oh, dear God. Oh, boy. Well,
good times.
Yeah, good times had by all. What's being inspected, DION or his property? Definitely his property.
Yeah, no, water heater swap and pulled permit for getting that done.
Sweet Lord. KLRB Properties, H1 is very good. I have a family member that does this in Pigeon Forge. 8 people to an apartment, $150 per week per person. So there are those types of places, and you can do that type of an H1B, but H1B can go all the way from landscaping worker all the way to high-tech $125,000 a year position. The real important thing is that you have to make sure that when you do the H-1B visa, they understand that they're the ones that need to contact you, because we don't put the tenant on the lease. It's only the company that leases it. That's the way you want it. Cassie Ironman, any interesting examples where recasting debt worked for you? So it was so we could make that much more profit on the property, so we could show that much more profitability. So it wasn't that it worked necessarily, like we were still going to end up having to pay more money into taxes unless we were being more active in our strategy to take out more profit. So when we were trying to grow a lot, we had to show that much more profit. So we recast a few mortgages. But we recast, we made a whole lot more money. And then because we were doing so many projects, we could take out the income that we were making. But what we needed was, in the recast, we needed more income coming in cash flow that gave us more money to then spend. So that's how it worked for us. Dion, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I haven't done the recasting. I've considered it. I've done refinance rate and term, which resets the 30, gets you the new interest rate, because interest rates had gone so far down. Recasting makes sense if interest rates didn't go down. So you want to keep the current interest rate that you have. Me personally, I don't want properties paid off, right? Yep. There's the question from earlier of, hey, but if we pay off the 7% on your primary, it's a 7% return. No, it's not. the principal pay down was already happening. That's already part of your internal
Right.
rate of return. You're only getting the interest rate, the interest return, but you're losing your levered position. You're losing your asset protection. If you recast, you need the $5, $10, $15, $20,000 as a lump payment that your lender's going to want to do the recast. So if you have that money and you don't have any other way of deploying it to make more money, and if you just can't find a deal, aren't willing to change your strategy, or at that point where you don't want a bigger portfolio, sure, recasting can make sense. But for me, every time I've had the money where I could go recast this mortgage, I would put it towards the down payment on the next purchase.
Yeah. Chester, love that I told someone to take a flying leap. Hyder's bringing us up on another TV to make sure that we can goose the algo. Thanks, Hyder. Chris Webb says, I've been working quite a bit, as many of you know, so I've missed several live streams. Matt, did you ever sell the lake house? Yes, I sold the lake house. And being a glutton for punishment, I sold the lake house and I used that 1031 exchange to buy 2 more properties. One of the properties turned into being a rental, and then the other property is going to actually be a flip. And so we're going to go to market with that flip in the next couple of probably 4 to 6 weeks, probably not even that long, maybe 4 weeks. That project is on my channel. We did 5 or 6 different videos. I haven't been back there for 2 months. Just because my guys basically send me an update at the end of the week. Hey, this is what was done at the property this week. So it takes me all of 30 seconds to read it. And that's basically it. Cause we've been in no rush to get that deal finished, cause we're just going to throw it to the market and sell it.
How many properties do you think you've sold?
Maybe I don't know, a dozen, maybe dozen, 15, somewhere around there, I think.
I haven't sold any.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I've kind of tossed around, I might sell this new duplex I got just because it made so much money. Makes decent cash flow. It would make a better cash flow if I moved out and turned both sides into a rental. But I don't know that I ever want to be in a position where I don't own one of the properties I purchased. I don't have 140 units, right? I have 8 properties.
Buildings,
So a recognizable percentage of the size of my portfolio would go with the sale of a property. Each one that I own, it's so weird. And this is the position I'm trying to get so many people in. Everybody who's watching that, hopefully has more than me. But there are some people who don't have one yet, or they'll have 1 or 2. But when you have a couple of rentals or 8 properties, every month, the appreciation that happens, the principal pay down that happens,
mm-hmm.
the rent cash flow that happens comes from having those properties.
Yes.
So even, and it's where there's this kind of inverse role where, let's say property value shot up so high that I've seen the question, how high would your property value have to be for you to be motivated to sell it? And so let's say, okay, I wouldn't sell it for, it's worth $800,000 or $900,000 now. What if it was worth $2 million? Probably not. What if your property was worth $1 billion? Do you know how expensive everything else is?
Exactly.
And why I would want to own the $1 billion asset at that point? Like
100%.
So it's not like the more they're worth, the more likely I am to sell. I think it's what age am I in? What stage of traveling, slow go years, whatever it is that I'm in. How do you consider generational wealth as important or not important? That tells me when to sell. Although I'm with you 100%. If I had a triplex like you did, where 8 of your tenant turnovers in 1 year was from that triplex, I'd be like, oh yeah, get that off the books.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. There's clearly plutonium in the basement.
Right.
But DION, you always say this too. And I think, and this is exactly where you need to be. What am I doing with that cash that I create? Like so for you, I would love, because of your $500,000 exemption or $250,000 exemption, because you're not married.
Smart.
So
yeah.
$250,000 exemption you get when you sell that place. The problem is you're going to make like 400, right? You'd make around 400,000 on that building.
After agent fees and anything like that, I think I'm going to make 3, a little over 3.
Okay. So you'd basically only have about $50,000 that's taxable. So what I would do is I would likely do that deal, but in getting rid of that property, then I'm taking the $250,000 and I'm doing the next deal with that $250,000. And then you add that to your 4. So the only time that I've sold a property was when because I only do 1031s. I have not sold a property outright and not done a 1031. I only do 1031s to get out of them because I want to reinvest it, roll it back into the next thing, and then get that much better of a deal because I'm selling a done product and I'm buying an undone product. And so there's always that multiplier. So I do a lot of times I'll do one to manys, which is I sell one property on a 1031, but then I buy 3 properties, and that money that I made off that one was enough to be down payment for 3. But then when you do that math, that 1 turns into 3, that 3 turns into 5, that 5 turns into 6, and maybe turns into 8 or 10. And then I just funded my portfolio over a 15-year period by only selling one of the homes and then having it roll over. The challenge comes into play where we had one property that we're going to make like $400,000 on. The downside was about $350,000 of that would have been taxable. Like only 70 grand of the cost basis would have not been taxable. So that 350 being taxable backwards on that property, other property, like it was like, no. I'm not paying $100,000 in taxes. That's not going to happen. It's not.
But you need to fund the government. You're the personal financier of all the welfare programs. We really appreciate your hard efforts.
Yeah. Not taking the bait. Wealth Building Journey says economies of scale, folks, economies of scale. It's very true. And again, I love the 1031. I wouldn't have grown as you need capital. Capital is the fuel of a business. You need capital to fuel the business. And DION picks up pace as he gets later on in his career because he's got so much of this disposable income coming in and sitting there. For us, we have that. But the funny thing is we've continued to reinvest it in the buildings and in the projects and things like that. So we aren't even, we're taking out about a tenth what we will in the next 2 years because of us going through the portfolio and making sure we're spending a certain amount of time and money, redoing units, redoing buildings and that sort of stuff. So we still make sure to make a significant, so this is my 17th month in a row at spending $100,000 on rehabs and construction stuff. So 17 months in a row at 100 grand. And it's going to keep on going until it doesn't. And hopefully that is in July. Hopefully that's my last month.
Based, what the economies of scale from Chester.
Yes.
I had a rehab where basically purchased all cash, funded the rehab myself, went down to my reserves. So for several months, it felt like all the money was going into the deal.
Yep.
And then once it stops, you're like, wow, that bank account grows kind of quick. Right now, Frank and Cynthia have 3 units that were being fixed up. Now they're vacant, they're being filled. This is that tight moment, like you've got the $100,000 a month going up. Once that stabilizes and it's done, I just did the quick math. I live on, even with the traveling aspect, 23% of the rents.
Right.
Of the profit of the rents.
Right.
So that means 77% of rents will be reinvested. And that's beyond the $5,000 a month that's being set aside for the normal repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. The idea is to get there. And this is I think the main difference between, well, not main, it's one of the top 10 differences between you and me. I don't want to be doing rehabs. I don't want to be doing burrs. I don't want to be doing value adds. I'm not trying to grow that portfolio because I don't have, 4 kids that still have all of their education years ahead of them and everything. I just need to fund my life. And my primary goal is to make sure I'm not a financial burden to my kids when I get so old I can't work. Not so much that I'm trying to leave them anything. I think that would actually be negative. The overall outcome would be negative if I left them more than what they're just going to get as a byproduct of me making sure that I'm taken care of. So I don't want to do the 1031s. I don't want to turn one into 3. Right? Like
for
it's
sure.
like I don't want to manage 11 units. It's too hard, gentlemen. I'm happy at 18. I'd probably be happy up to like 30.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't start
30
saying work at 30. I wouldn't go above that. I'm not sure I'm even going to keep the 18, right? So I'm not definitely not in growth mode. I'm in the money piles up and I got to put it somewhere mode more than, and so it comes like that basic question that we get often of, I have bad credit. a low-paying job and no money. How do I get started in real estate? It isn't creative financing. It isn't partners. It isn't the Burr method. It isn't anything. It's fix your credit, learn how to make more money, save, spend time getting a down payment on a house hack if possible, right? It's all those things to fix your life. It's not like somebody can go, here's $1 million in real estate, and you're instantly going to know how to manage cash flow, keep a reserve, do maintenance, right? It comes from slow and steady, build the skills, then grow the skills, and then add the decade that turns into financial freedom. It's why the get rich quick gurus will always have more views than us. The Crash Bro videos will have more views than us. If you want to help yourself, you tell people what they want to hear. That's what the Crash Bro videos and the gurus are doing. If you want to help people, you tell them the truth. And the truth we're saying is your way works. It's a lot of work and a lot of skill development. My way works, but it takes at least a decade, and it's super slow and it's super boring.
Yeah. Some would say it's almost like watching paint dry sometimes, Dion. JP Property Consulting. I could never do what you guys do. I work in the PM industry where I oversee and manage a large apartment communities. Maintenance is not my thing. So with all due respect, I don't touch things anymore. And largely, I don't even coordinate things anymore, because what we teach in my course is in-source property management insourcing. We have systems and processes in place where it's really easy so even though I'm spending $100,000 a month, I'm probably actively involved in a fraction of it. Like, and it's this, and I'm focused on new projects like the jail or my flip. I'm focused on those two. You know, the team is focused on the 153 units that are in active use. The team's focused on that stuff. I'm not focused on that. I want
and JP Property Consulting, 2015. Oh, wow. It's 10 years. So
10.
I keep saying 7 years. It's about 10 years since I've had to go to a property.
Yeah.
I go for YouTube, or I go because one of my tenants is my daughter. One of my tenants is my nephew. One of my tenants is a friend from work. Like, I go and I see tenants. So I see my properties, and I've been to properties because I'm like, hey, YouTube would probably like to see what its unit is left by the tenant, or what it looks like after it's done. Sure. I'm there for YouTube. And I self-manage. And don't have to go to the properties. I have tenants I haven't talked to outside of a couple of texts in 3-4 years. It's that the first few years of being a property manager, it felt like it took 20 hours a week to manage a tenant.
That was a lot.
I didn't have handymen in place. I didn't have multiple handymen in place. I didn't have my emergency numbers set up. I didn't have, I don't want to call it tenant training, but educating tenant systems in place to, this is when you can call me. This is when you text me. This is when you contact the handy person without me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's why you manage large apartment complexes. I do not want to own large apartment complexes.
And I don't know I don't know what JP's financial situation with, but I don't think we need to worry about you being the next owner of a 200 unit complex.
No, but and the cool thing is we need the people who manage those properties that don't want to own rentals. We need people who want to be doctors who don't want to own rentals. We need people who want to be CDL drivers who don't want to own rentals. We need the people who actually do all the work. I'm specifically targeting the lazy people who don't want to be stuck doing the work forever.
Yes. Zodiac 2, good morning. Wealth building journey. Multifamilies are better than single families because the rent scales disproportionately. Correct. More in landlord's advantage relative to a few SFRs because expenses can scale with each property. That is absolutely 1000% correct. Go ahead. I want duplexes, tris, and quads. Go ahead.
Yes, multifamily up to 4 units. I just want to make sure Chester is understanding that as soon as you get into not fixed rate debt, loan reevaluation periods, adjustable rate mortgages, you lose me with the benefits of multifamily. It's working for guys like Cody and Christian, I think, that are young enough to handle what's going to happen in 5, 7, or 10 years. Like Chester did buying his property. I want to fire a mortgage and never think about it again. And unless I hear mortgage rates went so low, maybe I'll refinance.
Yes. Chris Webb says, think back to early in your career. What was the timing like in interest to closing? How quickly were you able to go from this looks interesting to purchase, and what type of financing? Well, I've always moved quickly because you can't afford to move slowly. So when you find an asset And that was even before, you got 19 offers on a place. I would always just act quickly. I mean, I don't need the deal out there. I don't need other people doing their math. My thing has always been speed. So when I make up my mind, hey, this is an asset that I want because of X number of reasons, then I just move hard and fast on that. That's kind of how I do it. So
Yeah. You said going back to the beginning, it was 2 years. I didn't have good credit. I had a bad debt to income ratio. I literally had to move from my house into an apartment and rent the house out to get rental income on tax returns. So there was a 2-year period where I was getting my credit right, working in a new industry to become bankable. So if you want to talk about how fast it happened, it was 2 years. But when I'm looking at a deal for the first 7 years of investing, it was speed. I wanted an offer in within hours of a property hitting the MLS. I wasn't doing driving for dollars, creative, mailers, call, whatever, any of that. I was just going MLS. So it was speed. Now I watch days on market. And then when I make an offer, I'm okay moving fast. But it's already pre-qualified. I knew what I could borrow. I knew what I had the down payment for. So I knew all of the numbers pretty solidly before I started making offers. And when I made an offer, the fear goes from, what if I get outbid? This is in the beginning. You said go back to the beginning. In the beginning, it's what if I make an offer and I get outbid? Then the fear shifts to, what if I make an offer and they take it? Now I've got to pay for an inspection and an appraisal, and I have to follow through and get a lease and meet the tenants. And it's terrifying. And then you close on it and you think, oh, what if I have professional tenants? What if they sold it because it was a problem? Or what if I screened a tenant and put him in there, and now I've got to, all the fear just kept staying there all the way through the process, to where now I think the fear is still there. It's easier to manage because you're like, oh, if I had one property just completely fall apart, have a lawsuit and an eviction and blah, 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 there's 17 other units paying for my lifestyle. So the fear changes, but I think it's always there.
Yeah. Hyder says, JP, I've been maintaining other people's properties for 20 years. Just last year was the first time I worked on maintaining my property. The feeling was amazing. Of course, it's because you own it and you're the one that's going to get all that benefit. So Jeremy Kirkwood says, practical question for Matt. Loosey-goosey stair rail, traditional pine or oak style. Wood balusters seem to be the culprit. Take apart and redo hardware. Wood fill. Bracket seems to kind of work. Thoughts? I would probably see how sturdy a bracket gets it when you anchor that thing. If it gets it really sturdy, yeah, I wouldn't bother going through all the rest of it. If you're still pretty loose there, absolutely get that thing taken apart and put back together, and then just use wood glue everywhere. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I just did a banister. It was pretty loose, and so you got the ends of the banisters are the big 4x4 stuff.
Yep.
And then you got the little brackets. So I replaced 2 of the little brackets, a mid banister with square. So instead of ends, you got a new solid square in the middle to make it more sturdy. Did brackets, had one piece of wood replaced where the bottom square would connect to the floor because it had been multiple screws and brackets over the last 20 years from other janky repairs. So sometimes it can be, you can change a little bit of the structure and still have it look very similar.
Yeah. Yep. Those lovely dual posts with kids swinging around them. Wolfbinger says, pay close attention to what Matt said. Reinvestment is one of the major secrets to success. So, I mean, any of us, DION, myself, Millennial Mike, none of us until we retired were living off of the income of the business. We were constantly on reinvestment, and that's absolutely the way that you have to do it, is through reinvestment and that level of growth. So I think that that's absolutely the right way to do it. That's the fastest way to grow. And that's why you shouldn't be looking to literally run out of your job. Like the minute you have 2 properties, like let it grow, it takes time. There's no replacement for displacement. When you talk about a motor, there's no replacement for investing except for time. Like time is what you need.
The reinvesting. So I started really kind of saving 2010, 2011, starting, the new job and everything. 2013, first duplex. From 2011 to probably 2018, I didn't touch any rents. Like all of the rents, all of the profit from the rents would just go into, this is the down payment for the next place. And then around 2018, I did the shift I haven't heard too many people talk about. A lot of them go, I want to live off my W-2 and all of the rents get reinvested. I flipped the script, and in 2018, I started only living off of the rental profit and didn't touch a penny from my W-2 income. So all of that was saved for investing. And as rents and added units scaled, I wasn't living on all of the rents.
Right.
I started living on, this is what I live on. The rents kept growing. The W-2 was higher than that. So from 18 to 22, I had a 4-year litmus test where I never touched W-2 income, not even when an emergency happened or buying the next property or anything. So all that money kept going into the investment, not to my lifestyle. So that in 2022, when I retired, I had confidence of, I've tested this for 4 years. I don't need this money. I don't need the W-2.
That's the thing too. You got to test that. I find it funny. So I was talking to a potential tenant and he's like, yeah, he makes, I don't know, $5,000 a month take home. He's renting out an apartment that's $2,000 a month. So it's, it's a significant, we're talking about 40% of his income, of his net take, of his take home. He's got a pregnant girlfriend and he's like, yeah, we're really looking for like a 6-month lease. I was like, hey, listen, pal, I'll bet $1 billion that in 6 months, you're not ready to buy a house. You're going to be still pulling your head out of your ass with your kid, and your girlfriend is not going to be working. So now it's only your income, which is like $4,000 take home a month. So you're going to be giving 50% on just your rent. This doesn't include anything else: car repairs, diapers, formula, food. This doesn't include anything else. You're going to have maybe $8 a month that you're going to be able to set aside to your buying your next home. So I wouldn't be pushing me for a 6-month lease. I'd be asking me for a 5-year lease because you have no idea how expensive that kid's going to be.
Man, I have this one tenant. Every year she gets a pretty good sized tax return.
Yeah.
And she says every year, like 3 years in a row now, she says, I'm going to save like most of this tax return, 70 or 80% of it or whatever. So she's getting 10 grand back. She puts $7,000 or $8,000 into an account. And she says, next year, I'll take part of that tax return, put it in here, and I'll have the money for a down payment. And it's usually about June or July, I start getting the phone calls of, hey, what if I paid my rent late this month because I'm out of money? Every year. Hasn't paid it late yet. We have the conversation every year. Duplex Dave says trading out old stock for new stock and better returns. That's what Cody is doing. Cody offloaded some of his older properties, bought some new builds. He's right sizing his portfolio, but he's also going old stock to new stock, better returns.
Love it.
All Nighter Hider says, Jeremy, stairs are an art. I would recommend refastening with glue and screw if possible. If substrate is stripped out, glue and chopsticks can be used to reintroduce integrity. Yep. Yeah, sometimes you have to improve the base to get it to hold. Smoke the like button like Cheech and Chong. Thank you, All Nighter Hider. Todd Hall says, sorry he's late. We can start now. He's here. JP Properties, I live outside at every place I've managed. Oh, nice. But these are the 300, 500 unit apartment complexes with pool, fitness centers, clubhouse, and high turnover. Yeah, that's a job. I mean, you have a job. It's like
that is a job, 1,000%. Yeah.
Jeremy, I agree with Dion's comment. That's never happened before. Before lots of houses, there was one single family house, and then it was a rental, and then managing for a friend, and then furnished rental management, then partnerships and businesses. Jeremy says, thanks, All Nighter. I was thinking of some clean looking shims and wood fill. Glad to see I was going in the right direction. Yep. Wealth Building Journey says duplex drives quads. I always clarify when people say multifamily because there's so many multifamily groups where they're the Cardone people. And it was 16, now it's 32. If you're looking at a property and if it doesn't have 32 units, don't talk to me. Dave Cardone, it's insane that people actually want to work forever and never invest. It's this weird lie to yourself thing that people have too. Because it's someone else's fault.
Yep. Todd Hall, I'll do the work if not having a 9-to-5. Guess what? You'll do the work and have a 9-to-5 because that's how most successful people do it. And
most of us start that way. You know, you had your 9-to-5, 23 years of investing.
Yep.
I had mine, over a decade. So
just look at percentages. Like you had yours for 90% of your investing.
Yeah.
90% of what you were investing in 90. So you've invested for whatever, 13, 14 years. 90% of that time you had a W-2. I've been investing for 24 years and 95% or 96% of the time I had a W-2. Because again, Dion 53 and he's done. Me 47, I'm done. We don't have to ever work again. But yeah, we had to do a little bit of work while we had our real jobs. And then the question becomes, do you want to do that on an 18 unit portfolio or a 150 unit portfolio and need more people? That's the only question that comes into play.
And a huge difference is with 18 units, I'm pretty much right sized. There's very few levers I can pull to drastically increase cash flow and reduce workload. You could drop to 80, get rid of almost probably all the debt, increase cash flow, reduce workload. I don't think that's what you're going to do. I think you'll end up with 200 units in the next couple of years.
Probably.
But you have the levers to pull. So the larger portfolio to me makes more sense. I'm just way lazier than
I get it.
JP, I have classes that teach the small landlords all the business practices that we teach our leasing agents: proper documentation practices, leasing safety protocol, proper screening criteria, wording. Nice. That's helpful.
Yeah, largely speaking, I think that real estate agents and leasing agents are morons. Largely speaking, and I think that when you own the property, you want to take real ownership of all your systems and processes and work the way that you like to work. And so I think what's really important when people learn those quote unquote skills, I think it's important that they take into account exactly who they're learning them from. Are they learning them from somebody else that's managing the area or the type of asset that they're managing, and that they have the same criteria? Because the big, huge houses with, 200 units, you have a much higher eviction rate than we do. Like a much higher eviction rate. We don't, Dion, how many evictions have you done?
For myself, 0. For my friends, 4 or 5.
Yeah. And so when we've done outside of the emergency rental assistance program, we've done 11 in 23 years with over 4,000 tenant years. I don't know of any other corporate landlord, because that's what you're managing there. I don't know of any other corporate landlord that's anywhere near that number. They're nowhere near it. They're strong single digits. Chris Webb, Dion multifamily also have different insurance issues. Bought a 6 unit, just over 4. And the insurance jumped by $200 a month. It was an older building, which did not help.
Yeah. So Chris, from 2013 to 2021, I had very, very low insurance costs. A single family house was 300 and something. All my duplexes were 400 and something. I think I had one at 5. Triplex was 700. Fourplex was 900 while I lived there consistently till 2020. Now I don't think I have an insurance below 1,000.
Yeah, true story.
And the most expensive one's 2,700. So they haven't gone up like 10x or whatever, but they've tripled in the last 3 years.
Yep. One of the ways that you can manage that, Chris, is by reducing your limit. So we did that. We were able to reduce our insurance by 70% by taking the limit from 2,000 to 25,000. Because fact of the matter is that if it's a $25,000 project, I'm going to want to hire the contractors to do it anyway. And anybody, I mean, here's what my siding guy says. Matt, you're a good customer. So he does $450 a square for roofing. Charges a normal person $650. If an insurance company is involved, he charges them $1,050. He's like, because I need that to deal with their bullshit. So one of the things to keep in mind is that when you're getting that insurance when you're getting that insurance work done and it's $25,000 or even $20,000, it likely would have only cost you 10. And with how much more money you're paying for the premium, you would have paid for itself. Trust me, insurance isn't stupid. There's a reason all these insurance companies make hundreds of billions of dollars a quarter. It's because they know exactly how much money they need to give you and how much they need to charge you. And when they give it back to you, guess what? Your rates are going to go up, and they're going to go up across the board.
Gene here has a very good point. Mm-hmm. Says for 5+ unit multifamily property that's priced over $1 million, you might be able to get an agency loan, which would be 30-year fixed rate debt. Also, Velocity Mortgage and Convoy Home Loans have fixed rate debt. Convoy went up to 8 units. Sometimes they'll go up to 10 fixed rate, 30-year fixed rate debt. Velocity Mortgage, I believe, goes up to $30 million. So they don't have a unit count. They have a $30 million 30-year fixed rate debt. Properties are still valued on net operating income, and the loans can still include a loan reevaluation period, but you don't have an adjustable rate. So there is definitely ways to get into multifamily that can be attractive. I'm also still in the 4 units or less because I liked pet-friendly fenced yards, side-by-side units, low tenant turnover. When you get into the larger complexes, it's more like an apartment instead of a home, and so you'll have higher tenant turnover. It is a good strategy. You can increase how much you're setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, and probably make more money than me. But my thing is the lazy landlord, least amount of tenant turnover, least amount of units, right amount of cash flow. So I still haven't made that leap either.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's a bad leap.
Jeremy says he's got to go. Hey, cheers, Jeremy. Have fun. Hyder talked about larger fasteners. Gene Dean, you carried that one. All-nighter, 4 to 5 units. And then you need, not only do you need commercial insurance, you need commercial debt. And if you're going through a regular bank, commercial debt's a lot more expensive. They lost your audio. You're good now. I hear you.
That was when I had to go back down and let the dog out of their
Oh, was it?
room.
Okay.
I could hear the dog. I was like, that don't sound right.
I
was like, oh yeah.
Well, Journey,
the dog's this big, and it's like a Great Dane when it barks.
Oh dear God. Wealth Building Journey. I'm super inspired by what Dion said. Unless you can save up 100% from your W-2, you haven't reached financial freedom yet. It is a Dion. It's absolutely a Dion.
It's a video I made that didn't get a lot of views because I don't think the title resonates. But it's, if you don't have 100% savings rate, you're still a wage slave.
It's true.
And so when you're starting to invest, no, you're not going to save 100% of what you make. But until you can save 100% of what you make, and for a period of time from your W-2, you need the job if you can't do that.
Right. Todd says starts now. I'm sitting in my first. Love it. Hyder, I always told store building. I was always told stair building is special. A cabinet maker may not be a good stair builder. It takes a certain mindset. That's very true. Mindset. I know he did.
Your favorite word. I'm gonna get you a shirt. Mindset matters. Mindset lives matter.
I'll just steal all the money from it. Wealth Building Journey. Got to do the work. No way around it. I saw the report that a full quarter of all Gen X, the immediately senior generation to me, will never be able to retire. Literally never. Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of cases they did some stupid stuff. Like they paid for all their kids' college educations. They always live beyond their means. I mean, I know couples now that are in their late 50s and they have nothing in retirement.
It's my favorite statistic is 48% of Americans between the age of 55 and 65. So that's end Gen X, early boomer, have zero saved for retirement. That's not bad decisions. That's a life of just not paying attention to money.
Yeah.
What is it? 40% of people who have access to a 401k don't contribute. And they don't have any other investments either. They just don't contribute at all. So yeah, there's a lot of people. And then they complain that Social Security is not enough. It's not supposed to be enough.
Yeah. Maria says, for tax purposes, are you an S Corp or not? I am not an S Corp. We are a trust. Dion, and you just hold them in your name, right?
I will not step onto the soapbox and do a whole LLC. There are absolutely zero tax benefits from having your properties in an LLC. And the tax benefits from having your properties in a trust are for your heirs, not for you. No S Corp, no LLC, all in my name, long list of reasons. Several videos called Why You Don't Need an LLC on my channel.
JP says, not necessarily. There are lots of things that I see small landlords doing, saying, for example, in their screening criteria, that I would get slapped upside the head for if we ever did. Right, but you're a corporate. You're
that was like the other day, your video came out with Jeff and Suleika, right?
Yeah.
Awesome couple.
Yep.
They did house hacking, not only units, but rooms in their unit. Amazing. There are laws that allow you to be more selective when you also live on the property. You can actually discriminate based on gender. You can discriminate based on certain criminal things that you're not allowed to ask for in certain areas. So yeah, the smaller the portfolio, the more
Mm-hmm.
the more you get away with stuff legally.
And the smaller the asset too. Like the asset size does matter. Like when you're in there, the people that are in there are likely on a different life path than the people that want to rent a nice unit in a triplex. They're just different. And so, and I love that. I love how big companies run their rentals around me, because after 1 year I get their tenants because they're like, what a bunch of idiots. I hated working with the management company. They never fixed stuff. I always would make a call and stuff wouldn't get taken care of. I would ask questions about the lease and I wouldn't get answers, or I'd hear the constant noise in the hallway because they were cheap and they didn't want to put in nice doors and actually soundproofing between units. So I love big units like that going in around me because I always get their tenants. They never get my
I have a video
tenant.
where I did the thumbnail and it shows a massive apartment complex being built. And it shows a little duplex next to it, and it says invest here. The duplex next to the brand new apartment complex, your rents get pushed up, your value gets pushed up.
Everything.
And you have access to the tenants that don't like the way they were dealt with in the big apartment complex.
Yeah, and we're seeing the other thing too now with some of the bigger apartment complexes with so many cost overruns. Like they're literally losing condo sales. People are backing out of the deals because they're like, you're asking $40,000 more? No. And that all happens. And then even on the building side, they come in and they're like, well, we're going to do affordable housing. Well, affordable housing in my area for a 2-bedroom is $2,300 a month. That's considered quote unquote affordable. I get to be $1,995, but my cost basis is $800 or $900. Their cost basis is, $2,200 and they're having to charge $2,900.
That's funny. That's almost exactly the numbers. So my fourplex is next to a bunch of new builds. My cost basis per unit is about $700, $2,800 a month. Yeah. So $700, and each unit's above $2,000. Yeah, like because of the new builds.
Of course.
Yeah. So
we love those guys.
Build some more. Not the 50,000 that went into to the Texas town, wherever that was. I think it was Houston, where they added 50,000 because of the interest rates of 2020. I don't want to see 50,000 units go into Spanaway, Washington. There's probably 50,000 people there.
But that's where you have a huge advantage because of the politics. They're never going to approve something.
They're never going to allow it. Yeah. No,
yeah. No. It's freaking awesome. Corby says, bowing out, have a call with Jen Stewart in 8 minutes. Very good. Jen Stewart is our resident virtual assistant person that actually has 15,000 hours in wholesaling that she's trained her entire staff with. So they do a great job at finding deals. I've used them and I would never say that they were good if I didn't use them and found that they were good.
Do you want to know why I won't use them?
Well, because you don't want a deal.
The same reason I struggle using your way of listing a property.
Oh yeah, you don't want all the activity.
And if I use them, I'd be getting deals, and I don't want deals.
Yeah, crazy. You're like that country song, "Too much money or too many women." No such thing. It's too much of a good thing. Chris Webb says, yes, I remember watching about the deductible. I did increase my deductible and I chased the insurance twice making repairs, one of which was missing paint, and they still canceled. What a waste. My current policy is higher than the other two, but I needed stable costs. Yeah, I get it. I did negotiate 30-year 6% debt with only 10% down with the seller. That's an amazing deal. That's a fantastic deal.
Yeah, Chris, there's a few states where they put a type of rent control in insurance companies, and they said you can only increase your premiums 10, 15% a year. And so what they do is they just cancel. So when you go get a new policy, that's not a renewal. It's not an increased amount that can be percentage related. It's a new policy. And so it can be 100, 300, 400% what your last policy was. That's how they get around the law. Kind of like a landlord that goes, oh, rent control, but my rent's too low. Get out. I'm going to rehab the unit. Now I can triple the rents.
Way die. I have some net worth on properties as DION. I can cash flow $6,000 a month. Should I redistribute my properties? Not enough information there to give that to you, but as an example, I own 4 buildings completely outright. I have no debt on them. I have 49 that I do have debt on, and that debt ranges from 20 to 70% of the loan to value. So it's impossible to say, because what I feel like the question is do I have permission to quit my job? And my answer would be no. That's what I feel like the question is, but I could be wrong.
So if your net worth is 3 million, did you do the math right? Right. So I've got gross value coming up on about 7 million, less than, it's like $1.5 million in debt now. if you sold it, I say 3 million, that means I would pay all the depreciation recapture, all the capital gains tax, and the agent fees, and then I'd have 3 million left. So when you say net worth is the same, did you run it through the same metric? And
Right.
you have 6,000 a month in cash flow. Have you optimized your portfolio? I would recommend taking the Lumberjack Landlords Boot Camp, going through. Have you binder strategied all of your tenants? Have you raised the deductibles on all of your insurance to try to lower the premiums? Have you shopped insurance to get the best premium? Have you optimized all of your properties? An example is I had one last year, tenant moves out of, I put a closet in, it's now 3-bedroom, rent goes up over $1,000 because the tenant moves out. Do you have properties that can be improved that way? And how long have you owned them? Right.
Yeah.
So I've invested $320,000 of money from my W-2 and $300,000 from rents. So if I had $620,000 and I invested it, I'd have nowhere near my cash flow. But if I invest that and have one property for 12 years, one property for 10 years, one property for over 8 years, you're right. So I've got all these multiple years with multiple properties to get the rent increases where they are. Have you had the decade for the rent increases, opportunity to refinance to a better interest rate, and all of those things that can happen that will drastically increase your cash flow? So again, Matt said we don't have enough information. That would be what I would be looking for.
That's true. Will either of you jump? Oh no, another quarter of Gen X may be urban camping the rest of their lives. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but again, I can tell you, I don't know about DION, but I look at all of my tenants that apply, and they are idiots with money. You're just idiots. Like, there's a reason you might be in a campground for your retirement. It's because you're an idiot with money. Like, your life, your spend on life, you believe that you have a lot more money than you actually do, and so you spend way too much money on life.
A lot of that urban camping is addiction related.
I understand now.
Crime related. It's not so much the life choice.
Got it.
I mean, how many social network benefits do we need? Right.
Agreed.
Low income housing, welfare, BFET, child daycare subsidies, WIOA funds for training to go make more money. Like there's all these social programs that are out there. You almost have to consciously be choosing.
Right.
I'm not going to do that because I'd have to pass a drug test. I'm not going to do that because I'd have to not be violent. Right. There's these things that are making people urban camp that aren't as easy to nail down as you weren't handling your money right.
Yeah, there's plenty though that will end up getting evicted because they don't handle their money right, because they spend like morons. Will either of you jump into the stock market if the dip continues, DION?
All right, I'm going to say something. The less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt they are to look foolish in retrospect. So I try not to make declarative statements, but here is one. Let's say stocks dropped to 0 and all you had to do was log into a website and say, I want 10,000 AT&T, I want 10,000 Coke, I want 10,000 Berkshire Hathaway. Just click a button. I wouldn't own any stocks. I still wouldn't do it. No matter how much the dip is. I don't want to own stocks. Wouldn't do it. They're not real to me. Even if I knew they were going to recover next year. If I had $10 million net worth, I might diversify into stocks to protect my assets. But knowing the asset class that I'm in and mastering it is the best way for me to put money to work. So no. I went as far as extreme as I could to make the point, and don't know if that was real or not, but made the point.
I did. I have stocks. I have a couple. I got into Palantir when it was between $8 and $9 a share, because I really love the founders. I love Alex Karp. I love Joe Lonsdale. I think they're both really super sharp guys. I love what they did with the business. I think their product's phenomenal, and they sell to the government, and the government's stupid and spends a lot of money on things that it needs, especially in tech land. So that decision has proven to be pretty decent, seeing as how now that stock trades maybe 6 months or a year later at, I think 80 something a share, and it went up as high as like 115. However, I put a 10% stop loss in, so it sold when it dropped from, I think, like 116 down to 104. Triggered, sold, I was out. So now I have a bunch of freaking profit that I have to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with. So DION, I understand. Franco Bruni says mindfulness matters. Mark Ashiro says aloha. DION's googly-eyed, so it's clearly not the inspector. BuzzTune.
It might have been Steve. Who knows?
BuzzTune says super sticker. Thank you, BuzzTune. Deanne, are you still doing Mexican Coke? Deanne, what is Mexican Coke?
No, I've downgraded to Dr. Pepper for today.
Okay.
I make a joke in some of my videos where I say you got to do Mexican Coke to stay awake, and then I actually drink some Mexican Coke, which uses real sugar, so it's amazing.
Financial firefighter, go Patriots. Dude, the Patriots are going to suck this year. They're horrible. I live in New England. Tom Brady and I, who is the greatest quarterback of all time, whether you like it or not, tough. I'm 6 weeks older than him. And so our career path, he was a nothing. He was a nobody, 199th pick overall, that then became the greatest of all time, won a bunch of championships. I was a 9th grade dropout, and I was the greatest of all time when it came to tech sales. And I broke every record every company that I ever worked with had. And he beat me to retirement. But yeah, the Patriots have a long way to go.
That's sports ball, right?
Yes, that's a sports ball. Todd Hall says, if in your name and not an LLC, do you keep a bank account for each? Nope. Hell no.
You can make this as complicated or as simple as you like. Here's what my business structure looks like with 18 rental units on 8 properties. No kidding. 1 checking account to my name, 1 savings account, 1 credit card, 1 spreadsheet with a tab for income and a tab for expenses. That's it. I am trying Hemlane on a few properties. See how the portal works, right? Okay, so I travel, it'll be a little easier to manage them. But I don't have Stessa, I don't have door loop, I don't have, and even with Hemlane, I'm not putting any data in there. I use it to post property, and I might use it to sign a lease while I'm traveling. I don't want any of the other information in there. Spreadsheet I made with my CPA, it's available for free at diontalk.com inside the binder course, which is free. I'm not charging for it. Take the binder course, go in there, you can download my spreadsheet, has all the information my CPA wanted and I wanted to run my portfolio. But since there's no LLC, there is no reason whatsoever to not commingle finances. Now you have an LLC for healthcare and you got to know what you're doing there. I don't do that. Kindergarten simple.
As many properties as we have 3 accounts. That's it. We have our primary account. We have the savings account that we can drag, basically take excess out, and it's only because we don't want to have that much money sitting in an account that everything comes in and out of. And then
when I win above 250,000 sitting in an account,
correct.
I split it to 2 banks because I don't have the debt protection that your bank does.
Correct.
I just had FDIC, and but I put all the money into a property to get rid of that risk.
Yep.
What was it? I was going to say with the banking thing. Man, how confusing must it be? I've got a friend, Dan, who's retired, and he has an account for every rental, a savings account for every rental. And he made a job of managing 9 properties. Like, it's a full time. I want 2 hours a month. He's at least 2 hours a day, which in retirement is a full time job to manage his 9 properties.
Yeah. So yeah, that would add so much complexity. I would need a full-time employee. I would need full-time employees. And one of the things that I learned from coming from the healthcare world, do you know that there's a ton of doctors out there that actually do cash and credit card payments and won't work with insurance companies? Do you know how many people that they need supporting that? 1. They need 1 person at the front desk that does scheduling and takes payment at time of service. That's it. That's all that happens. If you take insurance, you likely have between 3 and 4 people in your office because all they do is follow up with these idiot insurance companies. Trade Better 99. Hello from Virginia. Great Friday treat. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for posting that's the course. If you want to see the course, that's my syllabus. So just look at the syllabus, and if you think I can help you, I can. Chris Webb has to go to a meeting. And I think he didn't want to get scolded anymore by Oshiro about his Patriot steak. Government-run social programs are unnatural incentives. Decentralized grassroots social programs are the ones that make a positive impact in aggregate. And he does say that he declares that statement. Got out of PLTR when it hit 125. Good for you. That's the perfect exit. I just do a stop loss at 10% because I'm not a stock guy. So it was much more like, hey, I want to invest in this company forever, but just in case they're found to be fraudulent or did something illegal or the thing's crashing and I'm not watching the market every single day, I just wanted to make sure that it gave me an automatic out. So I got out at whatever, one something. Or like 105 or something like that. Self-education just got here. Good to see you, self-education. Hey, Self. Hey, Hyder. Maria. Thank you, Dion. Maria, I answered your question. Just kidding. Dan Hawkins. What advice would you give a 22-year-old couple with baby one on the way and currently renting and mom wants to stay home?
Me?
Sure, you first.
I'm going to steal from Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time. Dan, you are currently closer to financial freedom than you'll probably be ever again in your life. And every decision you make now can get you there or take you away from it. If you say, I can't house hack because we have a baby on the way, you and your wife are probably going to work into your 60s. But if you say, because we have a baby on the way, I'm going to buy a house with an ADU. No different than having neighbors. What house are you going to buy that doesn't have neighbors within 100 feet unless you get really rural, right? So a house with an ADU, reduce or eliminate your housing expense, one of your biggest expenses, so that you can try to offset your spouse not working, continue to increase your income, change careers, change companies, whatever it is, learn skills to be attractive to your company. But right now, if you can incorporate house hacking into your strategy, or think that your baby's being born, what investment can you make now? Think of the Brandon Turner method. He bought a fourplex when Rose was born, put it on a 15-year note. Every month it cash flows about $1,000. So it's not a great performing fourplex, right? It probably made more over time. But when it was 15 years in, that was paid off. Rose gets to being about 18, which she's not there yet. He'll have a paid off property. He's not going to give it to her. He's not even going to lose an asset. He's going to do a cash out refinance. It'll still cash flow. All of the money from the cash out refinance is her money for college or for buying a rental property, or for taking a trade school, or for getting on her feet. You can make moves now that impact your family 20 years from now. Or you can use your family as an excuse to not take action. And you can be like most of the people in their 50s and 60s who not only aren't going to give anything to their kids in inheritance, are going to become a financial burden to their kids when they're too old and they can't work. Like, that's the way I would look at it, Dan. The more you're willing to do now in the early years of this relationship and this kid being born, the greater impact you're going to have.
True. Hyder says, self-educated travel hours come to spend time and help me out on the Gary property last year, then hours traveling back. Still appreciate that, Self. That's very cool. Old REI guy, Matt, don't get started on him lane. Hey, listen, said all I needed to say. You guys all know it is what it is. And for those of you who don't know, I like other solutions better in that space for smaller landlords. But here's one of the bigger points coming up, and that is Arlon, what they say is, what's the best way to collect monthly rent by bank transfer without giving the tenant your bank number? My best way is I use a product called DoorLoop. And so all of our tenants are set up in DoorLoop, and it only takes a $1.99 fee. And it actually charges the tenant the convenience charge.
Hamline has zero fee for their rent collection. Just so you know, even if they pay with a credit card to help there with their credit card, Hamline eats the credit card fee. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to do it. I personally, so you're Gen X, right?
Yeah,
you're younger than me, but you're not millennial, right? You're Gen X. No. So we remember there was a period in time where you had to write checks.
Ugh, gross.
Imagine giving people your routing number, your bank account number, your address, your phone number, correct, and a copy of your signature in case they needed to forge some documents to pay a bill. So I think maybe, Arlen, are you just younger? And it's people that are concerned with that? I'll give everybody my bank. I'll put my bank account in the chat right now in the video. There's nothing 100%. To do with it.
Yeah. Anytime that they're going to...
You can deposit a check. You can't take money out. But...
Yeah, I agree with 100% with Dion on that. It's just one of those things where I'll give anybody my account number, my routing number. It doesn't mean you can do a dime out of my bank.
Right.
You know, and if you do, you're going to jail, and the bank's going to give me my money back anyway because it's FDIC insured. So good luck with that. Tuan Pham, what was the deciding factor for you guys to retire from your W-2? Mostly emotional abuse from Dion. Mostly.
You're welcome. I have
go ahead.
3 reasons, but I'll let you go first if you like.
I mean, no, I mean, for me, it was, because Zub had retired years earlier. So the challenging thing is that my life, even when I retired, was going to be much different than Dion and Mike's, than Dion and Zub's. It's just going to be much different. And it was going to be much different because they didn't have kids at home. They didn't have, they weren't self-managers of their properties per se. Like they didn't like jumping out there and doing repairs and things like that for the most part. Like that wasn't their thing. And so for me, life was very different. It was really going from 80 hours a week down to kind of 0 or maybe 10. It was going to be a big change, a lot less. But yeah, the plan was to always do it. And then my daughter got sick and there was an 18-month delay with that. And then we were selling the company. And so I wanted to make sure I got the company sold. So even when I knew I was ready to walk out the door in about 6 weeks before my daughter got sick. And then when my daughter got sick, that changed everything. So, and then it ended up being about, not 3 years. It was about 2.5 years later that I finally then made the walk because there was life stuff that happened that I had to make sure was taken care of.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that some people made, like Zuber, is let work decide when you retire. Zuber planned on working till he was 50. He goes into work when he's 46 and gave a list of things to his direct manager saying, hey, I don't want to do these things going forward. The manager turned around in that meeting and said, okay, cool. This list of things you don't want to do is basically the list of things we want you to do. And so he went into work at 8 in the morning. At 8:45, he was driving home, calling Olivia saying, I quit because they were treating me bad. So I wanted to make sure work wasn't why I retired. I don't want to have Zuber for the rest of his life. Well, no, he will remember decades of work at that company, but he remembers the day he freaked out on him because he had a bad day. I didn't want to do that. The main 2 reasons for retiring really, first of all, is I didn't think I was going to. I often said, I don't think I'm going to retire early. I might not retire late. I loved my job.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah,
let's talk about what happened. Yeah. Yeah. And then you show up and you go, I retired today.
So the first time I said it out loud was at the One Rental at a Time event last year, not this year, last year. And it's when I realized the math of time. And so to me, this will be the most important thing I say in this entire video. The math of time is why I retired. Let's look at the year before I retired and the year before you retired, Matt. I actually said this at the One Rental at a Time event last year. So you should be familiar with this. You were listening to me. You were on stage with me, so I don't know if you were listening or not. But the year before you retired, for me, it was 2021. For you, it was 2022. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
2022.
No, mine was 2023.
Okay, so I'm 21, you're 23.
It was just last year.
It was just last year. It was really quick. But
yeah.
So the year before we retired,
yes,
whether we have young kids or older kids, a relationship or smart, whatever route you went, we worked 55 or 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
The average person's working 40. So we're working more than the average person.
Absolutely.
We have probably 5 hours a day that are ours. Right? You got to sleep. You got to get the kids ready for school. You got to do the dishes. You got to do the laundry. You got to whatever. But you get at some point you're making a YouTube video or you're watching a show, reading a book, listening to a podcast. There's that 5 hours that's yours. And we were both exhausted. Right? A 50-hour work week.
Yes, sir.
Dealing with the kids, or mine have grown up dealing with it. You don't stop dealing with them just because they grow up, even when
they're it's just different problems.
It's just different problems, right? So you get that 5 hours that's yours. And then I realized if I didn't work, because of the math of time, I'm still going to sleep. I'm still going to work out, still going to do laundry, still going to do dishes, still going to do whatever. I'll have 15 hours a day, every day, where you're not exhausted. So if you're working and you're thinking, I don't know if I'd want to retire because, when I get off work now, what do? I stare at Netflix. I have enough energy to click a remote. Versus you have 15 hours where you wake up and you think, man, I could scuba dive, I can paddleboard, I could travel to another country, I can go visit a friend, I could fly across the country, drive a friend's car back to Washington just because I don't know what I want to do next week. Like all of this time, all of this energy, you can triple the amount of life in every day. That's probably the main reason. And then the other one, Chester put it in the chat as the number 19. You most of us, Matt, you're going to get from birth to 18 with your kids, and they might go to college. And then I had birth to 18 with my kids, and you have pretty much birth to whenever we move out with our parents. Then you take the rest of your life. After your kids move out or after you moved out of your parents' house, the rest of your life with family holidays, game night, any trips you take, you're probably going to get one more year with your parents, and you're probably going to get one more year with your kids because everybody works normally till you're 65. And then, so you're working or your kids are working or you're working or your parents are working, and then they pass away, and then eventually you pass away. So the earlier you can retire, imagine how much more time you get with your kids. So right now, my kids are older. They've moved out. My son's off Monday and Tuesday. I have a daughter who's off Tuesday or Saturday and Sunday. I have another daughter who has revolving days off. I could take my completely open schedule and go. This is the day I'm doing an entire day with this kid going to do something. And I call them kids, they're 20s, right? That wouldn't happen if I was working full time.
No.
My kids are important enough for me. And so think of this. Are your parents or your kids important enough for you to do the work for a decade to free your schedule up, to actually have quality time with your family?
Yep, that's exactly right. And I've got a lot of young kids. I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old. 3-year-old's a cancer survivor. And so it was a very easy decision. It was what I was working towards. I wished my daughter hadn't gotten sick for about 1,000 reasons, but she did. And we were blessed enough to make it through. And then the decision, once we were on the other side, it was, hey, we just got to get these other things kind of put into place and have everything click into place. And once we have them click into place, then it's now I can easily walk away. And I can honestly say I've never, not even for a millisecond, thought I should go back. I
get that question. I get that question often.
Never, dude, never. What are you, high? But again, we were executives, and that's different, right? Being an executive is different than being essentially a little bit more closed off and having responsibility for just your lane. When you're an executive, you have responsibility for all the lanes. And so that's definitely more taxing. And for when you were in a small company, the bigger issue is that you definitely have the pressure of making sure that you're delivering what's needed to make sure that you don't have to lose any of those people, because you recognize and you take it very seriously that you are their food for their family. So yeah, totally agree with that. I could not be more thrilled. The most pressing thing for me this week was posting a sign on one of my properties. It's awesome. So I fill my week with the things that I want to, which has been a lot more helping people and doing stuff and, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's well worth it. It's not been getting a haircut.
Me either. So weird.
Yeah, I know. It's so true. I have a 2:30. I just looked down and I just got a blip on my screen. I got a 2:30, but
I have a nap 30. So
see, I knew you had something like that coming up. Yeah, I mean, it's like 11:30 and you're still upright. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's so weird. This morning it was about 7:20 when I thought it's getting early. I should go to bed. Trying out Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen or something, the new game that's out. So
I used to get worried about texting you, and then I was just like, if he's sleeping, he'll not, it's not going to go off. And if he's not sleeping, he'll answer. And I never know when that's going to be. So, guys, it was a pleasure hanging out. DION, always. I love doing our lives together, and thankfully life has slowed down enough where I can. So, but DION and I love doing stuff like this together because we do think about a lot of things differently. And we know that helps people. So, there's no wrong way to do this unless you're not being honest and true to yourself, and you're throwing all caution to the wind saying it's got to be super fast and I'm not taking no for an answer. Yeah, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, DION, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nope. I don't. I'll end with what I like to end almost every video with. You are going to be alive in 5 years. you should start investing like it.
I agree with Dion. See you, everybody. Bye, guys.